Well, good evening, Pipe Pals. Holy Smokin' Pipe Padre here on September 10th, 2025. And, yeah, I kind of in a pensive mood tonight. Dare say, kind of a very melancholy mood. And so I really am making this video kind of just to kind of express my sadness and grief at the death of this young influencer, YouTuber, conservative commentator, Charlie Kirk. So this video probably isn't going to have a lot of the jocularity that I normally have. At least I think I'm relatively a jocular person and a happy-go-lucky person. I think for the most part I am. Maybe some of you would choose to disagree with that, but so some of my regular goofy antics probably won't be on display this evening. I'm just going to, talk a little bit about this whole season of violence that we're experiencing. I wanted to get on here and talk about the new iPhone that's coming out. Pre-order is Friday morning, and other Apple products, Now, although I have my religious channel, my homily channel at Stevenson RF, mostly this channel is just to kind of let my hair down, what little I have left, and just, have a pipe, Tonight I'm smoking my Sherlock Peterson here. See if that'll focus a little bit. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Okay, maybe there we go. A little bit. Old Peterson P-Lip. Smoking again some old, wonderful 12, 14-year-old Hell of the Wind. Will this even, there we go. So, I wanted to basically just talk about creative things and maybe talk about a little bit of, maybe a few serious things, like tomorrow's September 11th, and kind of give our condolences and our sadness and of the loss of all those people in the Twin Towers 20 some odd years ago, 24 years ago. But it does seem to be in keeping with what I want to talk about tonight in regards to the death of Charlie Kirk. So, like I said, this video probably is going to be a little bit on the somber side. I have some Egyptian licorice here that I'll be sipping on with my Hell of the Wind, pipe tobacco, Peterson pipe, and Hell of the Wind pipe tobacco. So in some ways, I'm still, like a lot of people, just in deep shock. This today was a beautiful autumn day up here. We've had light rain and cool clouds sailing by, and autumn is clearly here, making its presence felt. And so, this is one of my favorite times of the year. I mean, I guess, to be honest, we all might say that from time to time. And when you live in four seasons like I do, you can see the beauty in all the four seasons, whereas in places like down in the valley in California, even San Francisco and, LA, of course, they really don't have four seasons. They just have, hot and warm, basically. Maybe get some rain showers in between, but they don't have the snow, and they don't really see the turning of the trees, a little bit here and there, maybe in the foothills a little bit, but by and large, they don't have the dramatic, real shift in the seasons, where you clearly know where you're at, which is like it is up here at the lake. And that's why I like living here. It's a wonderful experience to live in four seasons, although it can be quite challenging at times in different ways. So today was just usually Wednesdays are, for me, kind of an office day. Our dear little secretary, volunteer lady comes in, and we always have a nice time to sit and talk and visit, and then we work on church things. So it's always it's just a nice. Like Mondays are kind of like chore days, and then Wednesdays are office days, and then Friday is basically getting ready for the weekend, and Saturday is kind of like getting the final touches on everything. And so every day has its own routine, has its own set of obligations and responsibilities to be carried out. So today is usually, like I said, kind of an office day where we kind of go through paperwork and pay bills, or actually that's more on a Tuesday thing, but anyway, we kind of get caught up on returning phone calls and scheduling things, and all that kind of stuff, calendaring and all that. So it was about I guess it was about around 1:30, 2 o'clock. I get my phone the little text starts coming in from some of my parishioners, and they were starting to talk about this shooting. And at first I was like, well, I don't want to say I couldn't be bothered, because I was like looking at it and I'm thinking, well, what happened? I'll have to check on that in a few minutes, because I had some other things I was doing. So I said, well, okay, something bad's happening. I can always tell when something that is bad is happening, because then I started getting a lot of messages from different people, and it's like, oh, did you hear this? Did you hear this? So I kind of realized, all right, something bad happened, and I didn't take time to really look at the content of the messages. I thought, well, I'll just put the phone down and finish what I'm doing, and I'll get back to it in a few minutes. And then when I did, I found out that this young man, Charlie Kirk, who I think a lot of people probably know. Now, I got to say, I know of him. I've watched many of his videos. I've always found him to be very interesting to watch. There's a lot of these people, I think, that go around to college campuses. I think a guy named Michael Knowles, and of course Ben Shapiro, and I guess Matt Walsh, and some other conservative commentators go to these universities. There was a young girl named Lauren, what was her last name? Oh boy, it escapes me now. Also, I'm looking at, do I have a broken window up there? Oh gosh, I hope not. Oh, maybe it'll come back to me. But anyway, there's been a lot of young, I guess you call them Gen Z or Gen X or whatever. Lauren Southern. Yeah, I think her name was Lauren Southern, okay? Anyway, yeah, so, and she was more of a Canadian girl, but really interesting. But, she had her own way of confronting the people basically that are on the left, people on the left. And, and so these commentators have been, making their presence and making the rounds and on TV and different speaking venues and different universities and different, different places to speak. And, I have to say, getting back to Charlie, God rest him, he always impressed me because he simply was able to mount an argument, and he basically would have a microphone, and he would let anybody come up and ask him a question, challenge him, and 9 times out of 10, he usually won the argument. As far as I was concerned, he always put people in their place. I don't think he did it with malice. Every now and then, he would kind of, take people down a peg or two if they were a little bit too arrogant or too vituperative, invidious, towards him. But the thing is that he was able to hold an argument, and he was able to bring the receipts, if you will. That's a kind of a popular phrase now that goes around, when you make a claim, can you bring the receipts? Can you prove what you're saying is true and accurate? Okay. And I would say for the most part, he was for the most part, he's very diplomatic, respectful. Now, when people got really, really vicious and nasty, I think he would kind of, he wasn't a doormat. You weren't going to walk all over Charlie Kirk. But he was very effectual, and very humble. I saw a video where, I guess it was the election, this past election night. Gosh, has it been almost a year? My goodness, how time flies. And he was really choked up when he found out that President Trump won, Now, I know some people were choked up and tearing because he did win, not for the same reason that Charlie Kirk was. But, I think a lot of young people and people like myself are hoping that the acrimony that we seem to experience in this country will subside, that there will be an end to some, not just the tension now, but the hostility and the violence. So anyway, he, like I said, was very effective. The sad thing is that he leaves behind a beautiful wife and 2 children. He was only 31. And so when I heard about this death, this murder, which it is, I was shocked. I mean, it would have been like if somebody told me, one of my parishioners, that I saw yesterday or just this weekend at church died, I'd probably be in shock. I was really trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We had some of our dear little ladies that were very, very broken up and sad, and they wanted to get together and pray in the church, and so I kind of joined them, and we prayed a rosary and a Divine Mercy chaplain, as well as other prayers, and I felt a sense of, okay, it was calming. It was like a healing balm for me just to listen to their prayers. And some of their prayers were like muffled They were all crying, for this young man. I mean, I was emotional because I just, I was like, this shouldn't be happening. In fact, what I want to really focus on in the rest of this video is just that. This shouldn't be happening. Now, in honor of Charlie Kirk, because he used to hand out "Make America Great Again" hats, I'm going to wear my little in honor of him. Not necessarily to be provocative politically, but it's a statement of honor for Charlie Kirk. But I guess this is the thing, because I've been emotionally tied up in knots about what the hell is happening. And we can certainly pray for the repose of his soul. We can pray for his family. We can pray for all victims of violence. But here's where I'm kind of taking a little bit of a different tack from other people that are making comments tonight, and probably will for the next couple of days, maybe weeks for sure. I don't know why. I feel like I got little no-see-ums. Those little bugs that fly around. So anyway, but what I'm here to say tonight, and again, I guess I'm going to express my outrage. Charlie Kirk should not be dead. Little Irina Zertuskra, whatever her last name is, I know I butchered that, she should not be dead. Those little Minneapolis school children, they should not be dead. I mean, that's what's eating at me, is that, yes, they died, and we pray for them. We pray for all victims of violence. Whether it's on the left or the right, doesn't matter. But these were young, vibrant people who were just living their lives. Charlie Kirk should not be dead. Again, Irina Zeratuska should not be dead. The little Minnesota school children, those kids should be alive and, telling stories at recess and lunch and playing Foursquare, if they still play Foursquare. I guess Foursquare is probably politically incorrect now, too. I don't know. But, talking about whatever they talk about, little kids talk about today. Maybe they're getting ready for Halloween. That's usually the big thing right about now. Kids they used to. Again, they used to, because Halloween, for the most part, until it got crazy a little bit, was just a fun thing for kids. Going and getting trick-or-treat candy. Not that I necessarily endorse, giving kids candy, but there are worse things in life, okay? These were fun things. Kids dress up in costumes. They get to express their imaginations, But now Halloween, I heard one guy, well, whatever happened to Halloween? How come there aren't any kids in Halloween? Well, now part of it is the fact that parents are just so overly protective, and they have every right to be. I'm not faulting them for that. But the other reality is, and it's this all goes back to violence. Because maybe a third of the last generation or two have been aborted. Because people found that they were unwanted and inconvenient. So we're going to kill them. People on the left love their abortions. Yeah, they love killing things. They love killing things that are inconvenient and uncomfortable. Yeah, like Charlie Kirk. Like Irina Zertuska, I killed that white girl. Yep, I killed that white girl. Don't say that wasn't racially motivated. It clearly was. Shouldn't be, but it was. And the problem is that people on the left still want to blame other people. They want to blame guns. Yep, it's the gun's fault. Let me tell you a story. I had a grandpa, and he had himself, I think it was an old Springfield bolt-action rifle, and it's for probably 40 years, maybe 50 years. I don't know if he got that gun when he was in the Army back in World War I. He was, this was a person that died way, way long ago. So he was old enough to be in World War I. He probably was. I don't know that much about my grandpa, McCarroll. He was kind of my foster grandpa. He wasn't a very nice grandpa, but he was my grandpa, my gramps, Grammy and Gramp. And, but that rifle, that Springfield bolt-action rifle, you know how many people it killed? Now, again, I don't know if it was actually from World War I and it was actually used in the war and he got it, or he just bought something that was equivalent to that when he got back home and bought it at a surplus store. I don't know. But I can tell you how many people that gun killed. Yep, 0. For the most part, that gun sat in his closet and collected dust for about 40, 50 years. Now, I will tell you one thing. Here's the thing, that we knew that Gramps' gun, we always call it Gramps' gun in the closet. And it was kind of, we talked about it in hushed tones. Gramps' gun in the closet. Shh. In other words, there was a sense of respect about Gramps' gun. In other words, you don't go touching it, my mom would say, or my Grammy would say. You stay away from that closet. Don't you dare open that closet and try to play with that gun. Later, when I was a few years older, found out my brother, he had himself it was a Walther P53 or something like that. I can't remember. It was a Walther. But don't you touch that gun. Now, to be honest, the gun was, I think, under lock and key anyway. And every now and then when he would come home from college or whatever, he'd pull it out and show it to us. But we were taught to respect deadly things. You have a sense of respect for those things. Because why? Because they could potentially take a life. They're dangerous if they're not handled correctly. So we don't teach children to respect deadly things, One of my favorite little guilty pleasures is I like to watch those Arkansas State Troopers do their rounds. There's a guy named the Jaybird, Officer Jacob, I guess. What's his last name? Bird, Jacob Bird, Officer Jacob Bird, and he will fly down them streets and get them bad guys and do those pit maneuvers and arrest these people, and it's great. I love it. But a lot of people aren't taught respect for things like cars even, So the media is now basically, instead of at least trying to feign a little bit of, well, we're sorry this happened. This is tragedy. Oh no. Basically, it's all the gun's fault. See, if we didn't have guns, people wouldn't be, Or they like to also kind of do the same thing they used to do with women. Well, if you weren't dressed so provocatively, you probably wouldn't have gotten raped, okay? Well, if he wasn't being so hateful in his speech, he probably wouldn't. In other words, he deserved it. A lot of people on the left, he deserved it. He had it coming. See, this is where we are really seeing a breakdown in our society, which is not good. Where's Mr. Rogers when you really need him? Civility's kind of gone out the door. People are on hair triggers, no pun intended. They're offended at the slightest little thing. Well, that offends me. Look at that lady, the Phillies Karen. I guess they're calling her the Phillies Karen. You know, the little boy, the dad clearly, I saw the videos. We all saw the videos. The dad clearly got the ball first. You know, she didn't have her hands on it. You know, maybe she was close to getting her hands on it, but hey, fair and square. And the dad gave it to the kid. And she comes in there and you know, the dad, you know, he's probably thought, hey, look, I don't need this crazy old lady, you know, getting in my face. Here, take the damn ball. To the disappointment of the kid, to be sure. But what happened? The people saw that because it was on the Jumbotron. And they said, hey, come on, lady, really? You're going to be like that? How childish, how immature, how disgusting, how shameful. How you should be embarrassed to be acting like that. Give the kid the ball, you know. I mean, if it was just like another adult, two adults, and she felt that she had a rightful claim to it, yeah, maybe, okay, you know. But the dad just got it for the kid, dropped it in his glove, and that was the end of it, he thought. And then this screeching banshee comes screaming at him, you know, and he kind of like, what the hell's going on here? You know, kind of like a comedy sit show. And so, you know, all right, fine, lady, here's the ball. Go have a nice day. But civility, courtesy, respect, you know, people just thinking they can go up and just kill somebody. I'm going to pop a cap on you. I ain't going to think twice about it. Or stabbing. I had, unfortunately, because you know how YouTube is, if you watch YouTube and it's on automatic or whatever it is, they automatically will play the next video, that whatever you're watching. And I hadn't seen the actual violence committed on that poor girl in Charlotte. And so I'm watching this video, and all of a sudden it's not blurred out. It's the real deal. And that guy, like a vampire, you know, he just thrust that knife into that young girl's. And she's like, what the hell just happened to me? She's dead, and she doesn't even know it. As evil as that was, that crazy guy, that crazy racist guy. The other thing that I think is, if not as shameful, it's even more shameful. All those people on that light rail, they just couldn't be bothered. Oh, I don't want to get involved. Not my problem. Well, let me get out of here. I ain't going to deal with this. That poor girl died alone. Nobody lifted a finger to help her. That's so heartbreaking. And I just watched that when finally I heard, hey, Charlie Kirk been shot. I went, what? So on the heels of that tragedy that I was just kind of absorbing for the first time, I mean, I'd heard about it and I'd seen photographs of, you know, the setup before the guy, you know, but I didn't see the actual video where he really just punched her in the neck. And it's like, oh my God. And then these little school children killed going to Mass. Supposed to be the safest place in the whole world. And they're gunned down by this crazy individual. So the thing that I'm wrestling with is, you know, where's all this violence coming from? And a lot of people tonight are saying the same thing that I've been saying for probably years. And that is that there are two different Americas, if you will. There's America, and then there are people that hate America and want to overthrow it. Look what's happening in Portland and Seattle and LA and Chicago and DC and Baltimore, all these places where crime is rampant. Not just illegal immigration, but the crime, the black on black crime. People don't want to talk about that, but that is a reality. And God bless President Trump. He's bringing law and order back into these cities that truly need it. But we've got these people, politicians, who are beholding to more of a criminal mindset population Like, don't you be bringing in any, law don't go around here, law dog, that famous line from Tombstone. Law don't go around here, savvy? I heard you the first time, They don't want law and order. Why? Because that's where crime can flourish. You can go and kill people and you don't even have to post bail. You get no cash bail. You go, hey, see you later. And they talk about due process. This clown, this perpetrator, had been arrested 14 times and let go. There's your due process. And they let him go. I don't know right now. Okay. Here's another one. Here's one for you people that are kind of more progressive types. We just got through with Burning Man last week, and that's a pretty woke venue. A lot of people going up there and doing basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There's some artistic endeavors up there which are interesting, and if that's all it was, it would probably be like a family type thing, family camping and stuff. But it's not. It's designed to appeal to basically, I think, anarchists, really. And that's what we have to deal with in this country. We have anarchy and anarchists that have made great inroads into dismantling this country. And unfortunately, we're not, I don't want to see violence, but at the same time, when these people are not only promoting violence, but are engaging in acts of violence toward police officers and just citizens. There was a video a couple of days ago. There's this gal talking to, I guess, somebody in Portland, and just hauls off and hits this guy. Just hauls off and boom, right in the face. The guy wasn't expecting it. He was a sucker punch. It's assault. And they tried to arrest this girl. Have this girl arrested. Police said, no, we're not getting involved. Police are standing down. And when they're not defunded, they basically are told to stand down. Looking at you, Karen Bass. So, yeah, I'm filled with a lot of grief tonight. And it's anger, too. I think it's righteous indignation. Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old husband and father, should not be dead tonight. Irina Zertruska, a 22, beautiful young woman, should not be dead tonight. Innocent little school children in Minnesota should not be dead tonight. There's no reason for that. And it has nothing to do with guns. It has everything to do with sick, angry, bitter, hateful people, evil people who don't want to be told no, or people say, you know what, you might want to believe that, little boys can become little girls and vice versa, and that's your life, but guess what? You're not going to compel me to buy into your delusion, okay? You go have a nice life. You do you. But oh no. You can't believe that. Oh no. We aren't going to let you get away with that anymore. You're either going to believe that boys can be in girls' sports and you better take it and like it. Right? You better let those guys in those women bathrooms or those girls' bathrooms and change and hang their dangling participle before these little innocent girls and women. Oh yeah, you can't talk against that. That's hate speech. No, it's not. It's called reality speech. Now I know there are some people that are in the alphabet mafia, and maybe they're just trying to live their life, and they don't have any hard feelings towards people. They don't have a hateful bone in their body. But unfortunately, this agenda, it's been commandeered by a lot of sickos, a lot of violent sickos who are declaring that they are going to now take up arms, and they are going to use those arms. Apparently now I'm going to make a prediction, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back and I'll admit that I was wrong. But I have to say that I think that the odds are this was another trans shooter. Now, somebody said that. Now, there's a couple of debates going on. Well, this was a more professional, looking like a sniper. It was clearly a sniper, and apparently they say, well, it was obviously they hit their target. Sad to say, and so it looks like it was, quote unquote, they say a professional, and they're showing where they think the shooter was. And it was like maybe 200 yards. Now, that's not really a professional. I mean, anybody with a well-scoped or well-sighted rifle could make a shot similar to that. Now, maybe they were aiming for his head. Maybe they were aiming for his heart. Again, Charlie does seem to move around a lot as he's, talking, gesticulating and, looking at people in the audience and making a point, whatever. So I don't know if it was a direct shot on the throat. I mean, clearly it was a fatal shot, no doubt about that. But from 200 yards, most average people that are familiar with firearms could probably, shoot somebody at that distance and probably get a hit, So, but it could be that this person was, who knows who sponsored this person, if he was acting alone or if he was actually a part of this. Now, again, this is this transgendered militia group. I guess that's what they are, transgender terrorist group, who have avowed that, they're going to take up arms and they're going to wield violence against people that disagree with them. And it looks like this, again, like I said, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and apologize. I'll make a correction. But I think I'm pretty safe in saying that it was a transgender or somebody of the alphabet mafia, or it could also be an illegal alien, possibly. Could it be a BLM person? I guess that, again, the BLM thing, that's a different animal in some ways, because I don't think a lot of people saw Charlie as a racist, because he wasn't, and he wasn't homophobic, because he wasn't, he wasn't anti-immigrant, because he wasn't. But again, what he was espoused is law and order, the rule of law. Whether you're an illegal immigrant, God bless you. Why don't you try and find a way to become a naturalized citizen, a true American citizen? And I think the answer, painfully, is that the majority of these people, they don't really want to be Americans. They just want to live in America, make money here. And a lot of times I'll find out they send all their money back to Mexico or whatever South American country they're from to help their family. And that's a noble thing. Don't get me wrong, that's a noble thing. But by and large, they don't want to be Americans. They just want to live here, maybe for a few years, a decade or two, make some money, and then go back home. But I would say, and it's not just Hispanic people. Again, this has nothing to do with race or even ethnicity. There's Chinese people that are here illegally. There's Korean people that are here illegally. There's probably Irish people that are here illegally. There's Russian people that are here illegally. There's probably lots of ethnic groups. Skin tones of all shapes and sizes. Well, yeah, you can say that. That are here illegally, and that's what the issue is. It's not your skin color, it's not your ethnicity, it's your legality. Are you a citizen? Are you here legally, or you're not? And so the majority of these people that are breaking the law, they need to be dealt with, and they need to be told that, hey, you need to come back and do it the right way. And again, I think the tragedy was that this little Russian gal. She, I don't know if she was a total naturalized citizen, but they said she was here legally. So that's the irony, is that this deranged guy just, butchers her in that light rail train, and she's just left to die, all by herself. All by herself. And, but these dear people, they should not be dead. They should be walking around, breathing, enjoying their lives, thinking about the things that they're into. This, I don't know if this girl was, the irony is that apparently they show a picture of her in her apartment or her dorm or whatever, and she has a Black Lives Matter poster on her door. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just all agree that all lives matter. Thank you. Especially the unborn lives. Anyway, so just trying to process these tragedies, and although there's I guess there's a place for grief and sadness and tears and prayers. Oh, that was the other thing, how the media mocked in the light of the little Minnesota shooting, your prayers and thoughts, that's worthless. We don't need that. We need real results. We need real action. Yeah. Well, my suggestion is that everybody that's a law-abiding citizen should be able to carry a concealed weapon. I heard one old guy from Texas say, "Have you ever asked yourself why when we all come to a four-way stop, we all wave howdy?" He goes, "That's because we all know we're packing." We want to be courteous and respectful. We don't want to be flipping people off or cutting people off, because that guy might not, take too kindly to that, Anyway, but I think if more people knew that law-abiding citizens, and every now and then you get good news where a law-abiding citizen takes out a punk. There's some really good videos on there where, punks come in there and they try to rob a little 7-Eleven or Circle K or whatever little convenience mart. And there was one, I don't know if it was a stage thing or if it was real. I think it was real. Now maybe some of you saw this too, and maybe you can tell me. But I guess it was some little Vietnamese or family store, and these punks came in, these two guys, I think they were two black guys, and they tried to rob this store, and the clerk behind the store, a Vietnamese young man, all of a sudden he surprised them with a knife, and he just punched holes all over them. And then the one guy got away, and the guy that was, I guess, trying to get to the cash register, he was behind the counter, and it was just like lightning fast. You just see him just, and the guy goes, I'm dying. And it looked like he punched a whole bunch of holes in that guy. And I'm thinking, there's no way that guy's, just like this little girl, he just thrust that in and pulled it out and just walked away. And she's like, what the hell just happened to me? The horror on her face was just absolutely heart-wrenching. It broke my heart. Here's this girl that's dying now, right there. She just got murdered. She doesn't know she's dead yet, but she's going to be dead in about 2 minutes. She's going to bleed out. And she's like, what the heck happened? Just like that. Charlie Kirk, I think he was about 30 minutes into his program, answering questions. Somebody came up and asked him a question about Mormonism, and he was debating this guy, and then he said, we'll take our second question, and all of a sudden you hear the crack of the rifle, and everybody starts screaming and running. So, you look at, and then, to further bring more receipts, I'm not going to play them here. I'm not going to do them any credit to, to advance their evil screeds. But I guess people on, was it TikTok or X? Or anyway, I'm only really on, I think I'm basically on YouTube. I had a little bit of a Rumble presence, but I kind of backed off on that because I just don't have time, to post videos on different platforms. I guess there are probably some programs when you, especially in Final Cut Pro, I guess you can program it to when you upload a video to one social media platform, it does the other ones too. But I just, man, I'm overwhelmed right now with tech. I have some new programs. That's the other thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about the new color grading programs that I've been investigating and trying to learn how to use. And it's just, tonight I was going to be just a fun night to talk about fun things. Ordering the new iPhone, that's coming up this week. Talk about, again, the weather and how things are cooling down and, and the trees are dropping their nettles. We don't have leaves, but we have the nettles. So, and it kind of looks like a bowl of bran flakes in the morning because they all look, these little brown little cereal type things. They look like a bowl of cereal it looks like shredded wheat or, grape nuts or post raisin bran, And anyway, all the beautiful autumnal colors. All those things, the things that, talking about bears. We had a bear break in a couple of weeks ago, came to church. The bear came to church. Unfortunately, he made a big mess. He didn't make a super big mess, but he made a mess. And anyway, we got that cleaned up. And just lots of little things that are just more, just life things, And that's my point, that Charlie Kirk should be talking about life things and celebrating his family and looking forward to whether it's trick or treats or Thanksgiving and Christmas. And the little girl from Russia, celebrating maybe Christmas here in America. Maybe she has, maybe she's going to go home to Russia. I don't know. The little kids, the little sweet, innocent little 6th and 7th graders. That's the time when kids are really just coming to life, man. They're excited about things for the most part, and they're learning new things, and they're having all their friends over for sleepovers and birthday parties, and and all sorts of stuff. And no, but these people are gone because somebody didn't like the fact that they did not agree with them. Yeah. Or they were the wrong skin color, I guess. Anyway, so I just, like I said, I'm still processing this whole thing because like as they say, these things come in threes, right? Now here's a good example of that. And then tomorrow, if it wasn't bad enough, tomorrow's the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Yeah, I remember one of my early videos. I think I'd just been on, in fact, I think it was the autumn, fall, maybe 2009, 2010, when I got an invitation to, start posting on YouTube from the pipe community. And I thought, hey, why not? I like pipes. I've always been interested in pipe smoking. I've always enjoyed a pipe every now and then. And I remember I had a few videos up, and then I also made a memorial about 9/11, and I got several hateful, angry comments on that. I'm thinking, what? And that surprised me. I go, well, excuse me? Why would you be angry at a 9/11 video? And again, I think it brings a receipt. It proves my point that there are people in this country, they don't want to be Americans. They don't want America to succeed. They want America to fail. They hate America. They have a different agenda. Well, shame on you. That's all I'll say. Shame on you. Because why? You're angry because people may not endorse your lifestyle or your radical. I mean, some of these anarchists out there, I don't know what makes them tick. I think they feel that this is, which it isn't. It's a legitimate form of being able to go out and create chaos. It's like, okay, if you want to destroy this country, all right, but tell me what you're going to put in its place. How are you going to make America better? America was never great. Okay, fine. How are you going to make it better? 9 times out of 10, by destroying it. But again, what are you going to put in its place when you destroy it? Remember the Chaz experiment, people? Yeah. How did that turn out for you? You thought you were going to dismantle the establishment and set up your own little utopia. And I think it lasted maybe 48 hours. So what are you going to put in its place? You're going to destroy it. Anyway, how much time do I got? I guess I've kind of gone on long enough, I guess, but let me know what you think, how you feeling, Hey, even if you disagree, it's a free country still, at least it still is, That was the thing I did like about Charlie Kirk. I mean, like I said, and I was always amazed that he was able to really hold his own with some of the people that, I have to say, some of the people that did argue with him, they were, I wouldn't say they were dumb as a box of rocks, but they just, again, one person I think said it really well. I think it was Dr. Gavin Ashton, said they were motivated by their bitter feelings, and Charlie had facts. And those two usually, if you're going to come armed with just feelings, you're not going to do very well in a debate or an argument. You're not going to make a point. It's fine to have feelings. I've expressed, I think, legitimate feelings of how I this whole thing is affecting me. But I'm not ranting and screaming like, we're going to go kill those SOBs, because blah, blah, no. But challenging them, why do you have to resort to violence? Why can't you argue? Why can't you? The other thing, too, is America has always been, at least in my eyes, it is a place where you can basically be whoever you want to be. Now, again, doesn't mean everybody's going to applaud you and cheer you and pat you on the back and say, way to go. There are going to be people say, you're weird. I don't want anything to do with you. Okay? Go away. Go away. Okay? And that's okay, too. Because maybe for every person that says you go away, there'll be another person who'll say, hey, come over here. We'll accept you, And I, by and large, I think most people are accepting, but when you try to force things that are not right, and again, here's the other thing too, I'll end with this. I think, and I'm almost 90, I'm going to say 90% that I think I'm right on this. I believe that a lot of this violence that we're seeing has to do with drugs. Not just illegal drugs, but drugs. Some kind of drugs. I really believe that. I believe that a lot of people, I was one of those. When I was a kid, I got the fillings, the mercury fillings. And they showed that those mercury fillings really messed you up neurologically. And I used to have really weird mood swings. I'm not always the most level, even keel guy, but up until about 15 years ago, I was always battling. A lot of people talking about bipolarism and depression, manic depressives, all that. I think a lot of it is all pharmacologically based. I mean, 90%. Not just the illicit Class A legal drugs, but again, the pharmaceuticals that are even prescribed, the SSIDs or whatever those are, those serotonin uptake receptor drugs, inhibitor drugs. And I think that, like benzodiazepine, really a lot of people are on that as for antidepressant, I guess. That really messes people. That almost killed Dr. Jordan Peterson. Boy, that guy was on that thin of ice. I'm amazed that he's still alive. He almost bought the farm. And he finally got off of it, barely, but he got off of it, and he's now, to this day, I think, free from benzodiazepine, and he's really kind of mounted a crusade to warn people about these drugs, these SSRIs. And any pharmaceutical has a toxic effect on you. So if you're doing that, plus you're doing the illegal stuff, man, people, I mean, I think I think I talked a little bit about the Manson murders last video because it was August. And those were all drug-induced murders. Those guys were hopped up on acid, I guess. And and so they were not in their right minds. I'm not making excuses for these perpetrators, but I'm just saying that these perpetrators are motivated to do violent things that they probably normally wouldn't do if they were in their right mind, so they weren't chemically poisoned. Well, dear Pipe Pals, I'm thanks for watching. That's all I'll say. And I just want to say God bless to Charlie Kirk and Irina Zertrustka. I hope I'm probably not pronouncing her last name correctly, but you know who I'm talking about. And the little children in Minnesota. And all victims of violence. Yes, all victims of violence. It's unnecessary, it's uncalled for, and it's evil. And we need to address it and stop it. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Again, light up your world. Light up your pipe. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.